Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Dr. Will Show, the mobile university for entrepreneurs. This is the go-to business podcast for educators who want to learn how to turn their teacher skills into dollar bills. Each episode, I zoom in an educator who is an author, a speaker, and an educational consultant, and together we'll explore their triumphs, challenges, and strategies for building a thriving education business. I'm your host, Dr. Will, and today's guest is Sam Demma. He was brought to my attention from Dr. Brandy. And it's been a while since I've been back on, people. I've had this unintended hiatus due to an illness, and y'all know how it is when you are in them schools, and y'all can catch all kind of stuff for being in them schools. But I finally got some semblance of my voice back, and I'm excited that Dr. Brandy recommended this guest, and he and I went some back and forth for a long time trying to get this set up. And I'm so interested to have Sam on today. And I know y'all going to be excited as well, because I've had a chance to go to his website and check him out. And y'all ain't going to be ready for what you going to get today. So for those who be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, Audible, Sam, will you please introduce yourself?
Dr. Will, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm honored to be here tonight. My name is Sam Demma. I am a keynote speaker, an author of Empty Your Backpack, a son, a brother who is half Italian, half Greek, and proudly from just outside of Toronto, Canada, a small city called Pickering. For just over half a decade, I've delivered close to 700 keynote performances in schools across Canada, North America, and Kenya, soon to be Australia. Primarily, these performances are on the topics of mental health, leadership, and empathy geared towards students and educators.
Wow, so that's all right. So I'm always curious how people got to where they are. What did you think you'd be doing when you were growing up, and how did you find yourself in education?
I thought I was going to be a professional soccer player. 5 years old, I would sit on the couch watching games on TV, screaming at my dad, "Dad, you're going to watch me one day. Last name on the back of my jersey." And I really carried that dream with me 8 years. By the time I was 13, a professional soccer club in Italy asked my parents if they could move me there for 6 months of my childhood. They thought they could develop me into a future talent. I ended up eating way too much pizza and pasta, gained some weight. It didn't work out. I wasn't skilled enough at that point in my career. Came back home to Canada, absolutely fell in love with the sport, dedicated my entire life to it. By the time I was 17, I had a full ride soccer scholarship opportunity with Memphis University, Tennessee. And I ended up having 3 major knee injuries, 2 surgeries, tore the labrum in my right hip in the next year and a half. And that dream completely was ripped apart. And I didn't really have a plan B. But I was very fortunate that I had a teacher in my life who just had an unrealistic amount of belief in me, an unreasonable, unshakable amount of belief in me. He would pull me to the side of his desk and he'd say things like, "There's no such thing as a waste of hard work because it builds your personality, it builds your character, and your character sticks with you no matter what you pursue in the future." And he just always told me you're destined for great things, even if you don't know what that thing is yet. And he taught world issues, so he was always talking about making a positive difference in the lives of others. And he shared this lesson in class one day titled Small Consistent Actions. He's like, go in the community, take a small action consistently toward a problem you want to solve, and I promise you, you'll start making a difference. I started picking up garbage, walking home from high school. That was my first small consistent action idea I had 2 weeks after his lecture. I did it for about 4 months in my senior year. And then a buddy saw me driving home from high school in his beautiful baby blue Honda minivan, looking like an uncle of 12 kids. And he pulls over beside me and he's like, "Dude, why are you picking up garbage?" And I explained to him what my teacher taught me, small, consistent actions. That's my first small action. It's going to make a big difference. He said, "Why don't we do it together?" We start picking up garbage. We didn't stop for 6 years every Saturday morning. We did over 350 events. We filled over 3,500 bags of garbage. We gave out close to 6,000 volunteer hours to high school students in our local community working toward their service requirements for graduation. And we needed volunteers. So I asked my principal if I could deliver a 3-minute speech in front of our high school, encouraging students to come volunteer and help us out. And I did about 20 or 30 of those voluntary presentations in all the high schools in my district. And toward the end, I had a principal hand me an honorarium. He said, "Son, you did a phenomenal job. You deserve this." And it was like $50. And I spoke for like 3 minutes, right? And so I started doing the math. I'm like, 3 minutes, $50? Dr. Will, I'm gonna retire my whole family at this pace. And I was really curious because I never perceived performing or presenting as a career option. I knew I enjoyed doing it and kids were enjoying it. And this principal said, you have no idea. We bring in programs all the time, but they're boring. Kids don't enjoy it. We pay a lot of money for it. He's like, "You did a phenomenal job. I want you to deliver something next time for 30 minutes. And again, I was only speaking for 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm like, what am I going to talk about for 30 minutes? You know? And I went home and I got so curious about this work. And I went online, I searched the words youth speaker. I called everybody I could find on the first 5 pages of Google, and everyone answered the phone. I asked them questions. And that's really what started my career journey now as a keynote speaker and author. It was by accident. You know, if you knew me when I was a kid and you asked me that same question, I would have said I'll be a soccer player. But today I could not be more blessed and fulfilled with the work I'm doing in educational institutions across the globe. And I love it. I wouldn't go back even if I could.
Mm. When I talk to people about, doing this work, normally people who come on, they try to look at, things about, okay, this is what I do good, or this is what I do well, or this is what people say, hey, you have a skill or a talent at. But I think in order for us to reach that next level, it's about figuring out what makes us special, because that what makes us special is what allows us to stand out. So how did you figure out what made you special as a speaker and as an entrepreneur? And how do you leverage that uniqueness to develop your brand?
First and foremost, I stopped looking at what everybody else was doing. There is so many people doing similar work, and it's beautiful because we need all the people that are doing the work to be doing it. But if you spend all your time looking at everybody else's websites and looking at everybody else's keynote speeches, you end up becoming a carbon copy of somebody else, when what's so beautiful is your own unique ideas. Like I shut out the noise. I went to my journal and sat in silence and thought, what are some ideas that come into my mind that are given to me, received by a higher power? And I feel like when I'm in silence, I get my best ideas. That's how I found the backpack idea. That's how I found the taco idea. I mean, that's how I started approaching my presentations in schools, not as presentations, but instead as performances, and marketing myself more like an artist than an actual presenter or a lecturer. All those ideas came sitting in silence, journaling. I don't think I stumbled upon the ideas by accident. I also believe it was the byproduct of repetition. I don't think we get our best ideas on the first step. I think we get our best ideas when we're already in the journey. We've already made a decision to believe in ourselves and start moving towards something. The first 2 years of my entire career was me sitting in the basement, picking up the phone, calling people every single day as a 19-year-old, asking them to speak to their 17-year-olds because I had lots of wisdom about life. Like the principals were probably like, who is this young guy? But I believed. I really believed in myself. I believed in the message. And 2 years into the career, I started coming up with some unique ideas. It wasn't from the jump. So I would urge anybody who's thinking about doing work, whether it's in education or not, but it's something you believe in, start the journey. You don't have to have it all figured out on day one. Some of the best ideas might not come until you're in your 15th year. Like we just don't know when we're going to receive an idea. But I'll tell you one thing, if you stop or you don't start, there's no chance that you're ever going to find that unique angle or that unique thing.
Wow. So when you say that, what process did you do? Because you all right. When you're talking about shutting everything out,
Yep.
right? And looking at yourself.
Mm.
What is that like, right? Because people can hear you say that, right? Because like, okay, because someone's going to listen to this podcast and they're going to say, okay, I hear you say that,
Mm.
but what does that look like? Especially when they have spent so many years, particularly let's say as educators, they've spent so many years going to spending their careers where they're going to PD,
Mm.
where someone is coming in and they're showing them, okay, you're going to teach, you're using this program just like this.
Mm.
They're going to have an academic coach who's going to come in maybe on a week-to-week basis or some every 2 weeks, whatever. Oh, I want you to teach using this program, or I want you to engage your kids this way or this way, just like this. So there's a lot of
Mm.
scripted things that go in. And for some teachers, they have not tapped in to whom they are, right? They don't know that voice. They're not hearing that person, right? They don't know that unique thing about them. So when you say that, how
Yeah.
do they go that? How do they refine their core message, right? And how did you do that and to make sure that it actually resonates with your core audience?
Yeah, good question. I'll share a couple ideas. Number one, there's a brilliant book called The Artist's Way. And it talks about how people can reconnect with the creative side of themselves. I found that book incredibly valuable in times when I felt burnt out, in times when I felt like a robot, like I'm doing the same thing every single day and I haven't generated a new creative idea in a long time. And one of the practices I took away from that book is called morning pages. And the idea is every single morning you wake up and you write freehand 3 full pages of thoughts, things that are just popping into your head. And I'll tell you, the amount of times I get solid ideas during that little 3 page exercise each morning is astounding. And I don't start the exercise thinking I need business ideas or I need to clarify my messaging. I just go with an open heart, open mind, open the journal, and I just write whatever comes to mind and I don't stop. And I write 3 full pages every single day. I would highly recommend, if teachers and educators listening to this are not already doing that, but they want clarity on certain things in their business or their life, give it a try. Give it a try for 2 full months. And maybe 3 pages is a lot. Start with a page or 2 pages every morning. And you might surprise yourself. Every time something jumps out on the page, I want you to take a highlighter or another color pen and circle it. So it's like an actionable item you can follow up on or dive deeper in. That was the first idea that came to mind while you asked, what does the process look like? I think the second thing that is extremely helpful when it comes to people figuring out their messaging is being really present in your day-to-day life. Like, here's an interesting philosophy. My class, the World Issues class, had 30 kids in it. Why was I the only person who left the class obsessed with my teacher's lesson about small, consistent actions and started picking up trash? Maybe I was the one kid in that class who needed to hear the message, or maybe I just decided this is something that's going to change my life. And I believed in it wholeheartedly. And so I would say, let life touch you. When something makes you sad, allow yourself to be sad. When something makes you happy, allow yourself to be happy. When something makes you emotional, allow yourself to be emotional. And capture those moments in your journal. Something makes you feel super inspired. It's probably going to make somebody else feel inspired too. Maybe that situation or experience in your life could help somebody else. Could become, it could become a part of your message. I believe we don't write a good speech when you think about messaging. I think we earn a good speech. I think we earn good business positioning, meaning we show up every day and try something and we get feedback. We ask, hey, did this connect? What part did you like the most? And the thing that people enjoy most, we do more of. For me, in my first 2 to 3 years, I was a member of a Toastmasters club. I don't know if you're familiar with Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's a public speaking organization. They have chapters all across the globe. Every Tuesday, I would go and deliver content in front of 12 people for 5 minutes. And every week, I would do a different 5-minute speech. And I would be attentive. I'd be present. When I told a joke, someone laughed, I'd go, oh, that's good. Maybe I should put that into my keynote. Oh, that's good. I should put it in my workshop. So I didn't figure out my branding and positioning and the speech in isolation. I put it in front of my ideal client, my ideal audience member, and I consistently ask them for feedback. My first performance, my first website, very different from everything you're seeing today. And it's just about iterating it over and over and over again. But I would say concretely, morning pages absolutely changed my life. I highly recommend people start there. Um, and then secondly, test things in front of your ideal audience members and ask them for feedback as much as you can.
Okay. So this reminds me of comedians, right? So when we watch that special,
Yep.
that special is that polished show, but they have been on the road practicing those jokes, right? And hearing what works and what didn't work. And by the time we see it, they've already worked out that act with all type of different audiences, and they go, okay, we now know what we got. And so when you told me that's what I got here. So over time, when you are out here, in the streets and you're speaking with people and you're engaging with people and and you're having these opportunities to speak to other speakers or other educational consultants, when you've had time to maybe sort of map out, okay, what you wanted your personal brand to look like maybe in the next year or the next 2 years, okay, how did you map that out?
For other entrepreneurs that are educators.
Well, for yourself, because you know the thing is, as you said, you are doing something that is different, but let's say the ed tech space, for
Yep.
example, right? They're going to be educators who are going to get into this space who are going to be Microsoft folks.
Yep.
And there are going to be a lot of Microsoft folks there. So how do you build your brand that is going to be different to where when a school district is thinking, we want someone to come over Microsoft, will they choose you over someone else who's doing Microsoft? Same thing with Google, the same thing with Apple or Cami or what have you, because if everyone is, if there's 1,000 people who are doing the same tool, what is going to make someone, stand out from everyone else? So when you are at a point to where you are now, or even when you were starting to build what you were doing, and you were going through this process of going, okay, I'm hitting these streets, I'm becoming successful, I'm being recognized. Hey, I know we're going to talk about that backpack later, but it's like, okay, I'm getting all of these things going on, and and then and I know you're journaling and you're thinking about things and you're feeling it, you're in the moment, but at some point I'm assuming you had to sit down and kind of say, okay, I'm going to map out what I want my brand to actually look like. What
Yep.
steps did you take to actually map out your brand to say, okay, in the next sort of year from now, 2 years, 3 years now, I want my brand to look like this. So when people are saying we want this type of speaker, that Sam Demma is the person they look for.
Yeah, great questions. I think the first thing for me was deciding what service I wanted to offer the world. So you could do 1,000 different things. And there's a Bruce Lee quote, don't fear the man who does 10,000 different kicks, fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. You want to become so good at one specific skill that when anyone in the world looks for that specific skill, it's a no-brainer that they choose you. And the way I believe you build that level of skill is by not doing 10 different things when you first start. Choose one service. Like even for me, I'm 6 years in, and one of my only main services to this day is still keynote speaking, because that's where I feel the most utilized. That's where I feel the most fulfilled and where I make the biggest contribution. And so I would say start there. Start by choosing one service. Don't do 10 different things. Once you choose the service, find all the best resources you possibly can that'll help you improve that service. So, for example, for me, when I first started, I decided I want to build a Keynote business, and education space. I want to speak to students and teachers. I want to be the best in the world at it. So I went on Google and I searched, best books for keynote speakers in education. And I read all the books I could find. And I bought a course. It was called Youth Speaker University. That's some guy in California named Josh. And I took his program. And I joined the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And I started developing that skill. I think that was like the first concrete step that I took. Then you're right. I definitely sat down and I said, hey, how many speeches a year do I want to do? And how do I want people to feel about me or think about me when they search my name or say my name? I think it's really important that you have some very key vocabulary that other people can recognize you by, or that you use consistently to a point where when you say those things, they instantly think of you. So I chose 3. I have small, consistent actions, empty your backpack, and be someone's taco. And if anyone says those 3 things, hopefully I've said them enough myself that other people are like, oh, that's a Sam Demma phrase. That's a Sam Demma statement. So now we have one core product, one core service that we want to do better than anybody else in the world. We have a couple pieces of vocabulary that people associate with our brand. And then from there, you can get as specific as we want on this podcast, but you want to build a platform of some sort. So choose one social media platform along with a personal website that displays your services, your portfolio, your testimonials, your previous clients, or if you're just starting, just your products and services and a little bit about yourself. Build consistently on one of the social media platforms, direct people back to your website that hopefully has that vocabulary and those catchphrases on them as well. Choose a select set of colors you want to be known for. For me, I wear almost the same thing on stage every single time I go up. My colors on my website are black, dark gray, and red. Those are the colors that I use on my branding. I really believe if you just choose one service, you get really good at it in terms of the skill and delivering it. You choose some vocabulary, you build one of the social media platforms along with the website. I think that's the beginning. And then what separates you at that point, because there's a lot of people that have good branding and good websites, what separates you after that point is how good the actual service is. Because at the end of the day, you could have amazing branding, but if it doesn't match the expectations of the service you deliver, people are going to say, oh, I thought it was going to be amazing, but it wasn't great. Now, the same thing with sales. You can be a master salesperson, but if you oversell and underdeliver, everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, that guy, Sam Demma, he got me, but the service wasn't great. And they're going to tell their friends. They're going to say, hey, it didn't actually meet our expectations. But listen to this. If your website was not great and your marketing was not great and your branding was not great, but you got an opportunity and you over-delivered, like I'm talking, you were the best of the best, they're going to tell all their friends. They're going to call all their colleagues and say, this guy was absolutely amazing. And so the brand is what people are saying when they're not even speaking to you. And the only way you build that reputation is by being excellent at what you do. And the only way you be excellent is by building a skill. So just choose one and go as deep as you possibly can. I think that is the key. That's what I try to do myself. And then when I get an opportunity, no matter how small, I try my best to give an exceptional customer experience. Someone calls, someone sends an email, I pick up the phone and call them right away. They send an email, I send them a video email introducing myself, excited about the opportunity to connect with them. I send them thank you cards in the mail after calls, after performances. I'll go drive to a school to interview staff before I show up and speak. Like if you go above and beyond in your service, you can't lose.
All right, folk. All right. Now, your book, Empty Your Backpack, is such an interesting concept. What is the central message of your book, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
Big idea is we all have this giant invisible backpack strapped to our shoulders, filled with thoughts, experiences, and beliefs based on things from the past, based on things from the present. Some of the things in our backpack are very positive and they build us up. They help us be ourselves, and we should keep those in there, guard them, and celebrate them. But there are some stories and beliefs and challenges we're carrying on our shoulders that are weighing us down, holding us back, that are not even our stuff to carry in the first place. And if we don't take the time to recognize that we have a backpack and do our best to empty some of those negative thoughts, over time, they start taking root in our minds, almost like a garden being covered in weeds. And so the idea of the book is like, hey, our backpack dictates everything that happens in our lives. because our actions are the result of our emotions, and our emotions are the result of what we choose to believe. So our beliefs, our thoughts, the stories we tell ourselves are at the core of every experience we have in our life. And I wanted to figure out, how can I get this message across to young, especially young people? Like, the book was written and intended to be read by students. I've now had thousands of people read it. A lot of educators absolutely love the book as well and have found it very helpful, especially those that are entrepreneurial. But it was primarily made for students, because the challenge is, how do you get a young person to understand how important their mindset is? And my hope is that they'll read the book and decide to be a little more careful about what they carry on their shoulders in terms of the stories they tell themselves. And I believe that in life, there's so many things we can't control, but the stories we tell ourselves and the choices we make are two of the things we can. So I hope that people read it. They guard the garden of their mind a little more than they did before they read the book. They change some of the affirmations they might be living by, and ultimately change their emotions and their choices as well.
All right. Now, hey, when I saw this video of you running on stage with that human-sized backpack, I was like, what's going on here? What's going on here? Look, that is such a memorable visual, right? Where did that idea come from, and what role does it play in you delivering your message?
You got to let life touch you. I was on an Instagram live call, and I was inviting students up on stage, asking them about their dreams and their goals. And a student joined, and he told me that he had two big goals in life. He said, first, I want to be an actor, and secondly, I want to have 50,000 followers on social media. And I asked this young man, why do you want 50,000 followers? And he said, well, if I had 50,000 followers, kids at school would stop bullying me. And he turned off the camera during the Instagram call, started crying, goes completely silent. And to this day, I'm so thankful there was another 30 young people watching this call who started immediately filling the chat box with the most positive comments, trying to uplift him. And 5 minutes later, he turned the camera back on. We made sure he was okay. We connected him with some guidance counselors and supports at school. But the call ended, and I couldn't get this conversation out of my mind. And I was very inspired by rap music at the time. And I was writing an album of poems. It was called Dear High School Me. And it was going to be poems written for high school students. And I was like, damn, I wonder how long this young man has been carrying around these other people's negative thoughts and opinions about him. And so I'm like, well, he has to empty those opinions. I was like, well, if you're not letting go of them, you're carrying them. And I was like, what do students carry? Oh, they carry backpacks. And I was like, well, if they carry backpacks and they're not letting go of stuff, they must have a pretty big backpack. And so this is all me writing on my notepad and thinking after this conversation. And then I went on Google and I searched giant backpack, and I seen this giant red bag. And I called the company that I saw the logo on, and I said, hey, can I borrow one of your backpacks? I want to deliver speeches in schools. At the time, actually, it wasn't about speeches. I wanted to make a poem, a spoken word poem about it. And they said, no, sorry, we don't give out the backpack. And I was like, I don't think you understand. It's a free marketing opportunity. I go around to thousands of kids. And they're like, nope, we don't give them out. So I searched for one for a good 2 to 3 months, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was about to give up, and my mom sees me struggling. And she's like, honey, have you checked Facebook Marketplace? And I was like, Ma, no disrespect. There's not going to be one on Facebook Marketplace. I can't find it anywhere. And she's like, just check. I go on there that day. This is where it gets a little bit religious, spiritual. There was a bag listed, identical giant red backpack, 8 hours before I checked, 30-minute drive from my house.
Wow.
I go pick up this giant red backpack, and because the whole idea is about letting go of the negative thoughts, I had a seamstress take the handles off and flip it upside down. But that's really where the concept came from. It was being present with the young man on Instagram Live, listening to his challenges, thinking about it after the speech or after the conversation concluded, and following the creative ideas that followed afterwards after sitting in some reflection.
Wow. Because that is one of those visuals that when you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Yo,
That is like, it's like, oh, okay.
I've had some fun at the airport actually, trying to get it through security sometimes. They tell me that it's too big to be my one personal item. They said I could bring a backpack, you know?
I'm like, wow. Um, you are doing it, and it's interesting because you say earlier in the conversation you spoke about how it's like you approach the work from sort of an artist's perspective,
Mm,
not like not like I guess the typical sort of maybe educator or button up sort of speaker. And when you go to
sure.
your website, you can definitely see it. And then when you have like these tour dates, right? And that's what I thought, like tour dates. Oh, this is the homes on tour and stuff. Um, what excites you the most about the work you do?
I get messages every single day. So right now I'm doing about 150 to 200 shows or events per year. And I'm very intentional about the language I choose to use around the work because for me it matters and I think it makes a difference. But I'm gonna pull up one I just got today. Um, I get messages directly from students. I get them from staff. Here's a message. Hey Sam, your presentation at OLG the other day really spoke to me. I didn't have the confidence to say this, but your presentation helped me gain that confidence, and this will be a life changer. I want to thank you for that. This is a message from a young kid. And I know for a fact that the most important thing we can give to any young person on this planet is belief in themselves because it all comes down to belief. And so for me, getting messages like that is the reason why I keep showing up. I'd be lying to you if I also told you I didn't enjoy the work. I freaking love it. There's times where I'm tired, of course. There's times where I don't want to show up, of course. There's times where I'm on the road 3 months in a row, don't see my family, and I want to go home. But that's every profession. There's always going to be times when it's difficult or challenging. But what keeps me showing up is the impact and the messages I get from young people and teachers. I've had students tell me they were going to commit suicide, and then something I said changed the way they felt. I can't take credit for it. Like, I don't know exactly what words I said that really moved that person that deeply, but if I know that my presence in these spaces help kids, it would be selfish for me not to show up.
Wow, people. Mm, mm. Now, it's been awesome having you, on the show and hearing about your journey. And, it's one of those things to where as educators, most of us don't go to school, we don't go to school for business and we
Mm,
don't uh, know about business. We sort of fall into this for many different reasons and it just sort of happens, like even for myself, I was just quote unquote on the circuit, just going around these different conferences, and I did it for years. I was just speaking at all these different conferences, and I never even really necessarily thought about, yo, this is something that I would do until someone
yeah.
approached me like, hey, what do you charge to come to my district? And I was like, uh, okay. I was caught off guard. Then I
Yep.
called up a homie. I said, hey man, what do I do about this? And then he kind of said, okay. He gave me a little game. And then again, something from there. And then nothing sort of happened. But then, the next time around this thing came, then that first job did come.
Yep.
And when the first check came, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, all right. It was a lot of money for 6 hours of work,
Mm,
right? And I was like, all right, but I still didn't know at that point how to make it a business. It was just like, yo, this is a one-time situation that happened. So we all have to learn how do you turn that first invitation
Yep.
into a business if that's something that you want to do. So to have you come on, talk about, this journey of how you made that happen, that's cool. And that's the purpose, of this show. Before we go, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you at the beginning?
Hire help sooner. I believe that if you're really serious about bringing to life the vision you have for the business you want to create, there's people out there that are already doing it at such high levels that are almost always more than happy to extend a hand back and help you figure out the steps you have to take. I had a speaking coach and a business coach I've had one for the past 5 years, but the first 3 years of that experience was with a gentleman named Chris, who I had a phone call with every Tuesday for 2 hours. I didn't even know what the heck an invoice was, Will. I don't know business. I didn't get into this because of business. I got into it because I wanted to make a contribution, and then I had to figure out how to also turn it into a business if I wanted to keep doing it for the rest of my life. And I was blessed that I made the decision, a very uncomfortable decision, to place my hard-earned money into a coach. But I would highly recommend anybody listening to this, find someone who's doing the exact work you want to do. Doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be Dr. Will, but find somebody who's doing it and ask them for help. Now, I'll extend an invitation. If there is someone listening to this who does want to do keynote speeches in educational institutions, I mentor. I have like 11 students. We do a group call every single week. If you DM me the word elite on social media, on Instagram, I'll send you some information. Maybe I can help. If it's not me, I can connect you to so many other people. But I wish my first year instead of my third year, someone told me, dude, put your pride aside and hire a coach. Find some help from somebody who's already doing the thing you want to do at a very high level, because they can take the 10 years of experience they have and compress it into, 30 minutes of education for you that could stop you from making so many mistakes on your own.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. I thank you, Sam, for coming on the show.
Dr. Will, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, people, you know how we do this. This podcast episode is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible. I need you to subscribe and to share with your network. And though them on all of the major podcast platforms, I need you to go on Apple Podcasts and subscribe and to give me some reviews and some stars, because they check those things, people. Listen to and give the reviews and hook me up, because I'm trying to be found and I'm trying to get Oprah on the show, because I want her to know that we're doing big things around here. And again, I'd like to thank my guest, Sam Demma, for coming on and dropping the gems, because you know how we're doing this around here. As always, people, invest in you, EDU, peace.